Hello, everyone. You are listening to the C Squared podcast with Corey and Curtis, hosted by Ghost Cult Magazine. We have an exciting guest for you today. We are here with James Weaver of Distorted Sound. He is here to drop some knowledge bombs on y'all. So we're very happy to have him here. So first, I just want to say thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's been looking forward to it all week, actually.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Most people don't look forward to talking to me. I'll just... But for the people who may not be familiar with what you do and what you've been working on, do you want to just give like a brief introduction of who you are, what you're about, and your fun project that is Distorted Sound?
Yeah, so I am the founder and editor-in-chief of Distorted Sound magazine, which is an online-only website and monthly digital magazine. And alongside that, I freelance at Metal Hammer magazine.
Cool. Can I follow up?
Of course. I know you want to. I know you're already jonesing for the follow-up.
I am jonesing for the follow-up. Okay, so how long have you been number one, James? Like, can you kind of give a brief?
So I've been writing about music since 2012. That started when I was at college, just like writing reviews of bands because I was really into metal. Like going to gigs was literally the only thing I sort of did. So I thought, why don't write a review about it? And then I ended up going to university doing a journalism degree, specializing in music. And one of the major projects that we had to do in my final year was like we had to create a professional-looking print magazine, and that was how Distorted Sound was born. So that very first issue was a university project. And at that point, I'd already been freelancing for a couple of other websites. I'd already got in the door with Terrorizer magazine. So I already had the contacts. So when that project finished, I had so much fun doing it. Because, I mean, for a university project, I got to speak to like Floor Jansen of Nightwish, Ajmedi of Melakesh. I think Karak Angren were on the cover. So they were big name bands rather than local bands around me. So I already had those contacts. I had a few friends as well that really liked it. So we went, you know what? Fuck it. Let's see how this goes. And 6 years later, it just keeps growing. So it's really, really cool.
Nice. Oh, okay. Can you kind of go over then a brief overview of kind of like why you actually started the magazine then? Like, what's the actual...
It's kind of a funny story, really, because like the idea sort of to carry it on, I went to like a day fest in Manchester, like in Paracon Fest. So it was like hardcore, metalcore, deathcore bands. And I was covering it for another website that I was freelancing for. And I thought, oh, this is great. This is so much fun. But I want to do this myself. I actually want to run this. Nice. And then from there, because I said that to about 5 people, I woke up the next day a bit foggy from all the beer that had been consumed the night before and went, oh no, I said that thing, didn't I? Right, I've got to stick to my guns here. I've got to go on with this. So I messaged the people and they're like, yeah, it sounds great, man. Let's do it. But to sort of give a more serious answer, I thought there was a gap in the market. I thought there are loads of really cool blogs out there, but especially in the UK as well, there were so many upcoming bands coming through, and it's like, why aren't they getting the big 6-page features in a magazine that looks professional? It might just be only online, but we get that space. So now, like 6 years later, when we've grown to the point where pretty much most bands we ask for, we can get time with, we still make sure that like those bands that are breaking through, they will get that time and space. Like we've done stuff with like Venom Prison, who have been on the cover twice now, I think. Yeah, twice. And we first started covering them when they first broke through. And there's been so many success stories as well when we've seen these bands grow and grow. And it's like, oh, that's so cool that we spoke to them on their like first EP. And we've kind of been part of that journey as well and getting that reputation and that relationship with the bands as well. Like, because at the end of the day, everyone who writes for me, they are the biggest music fans you will ever meet. They all do it purely out of passion. So when they find a band that they love, they connect to it. Because a lot of the writers that have sort of come and go, because it's been a bit of a revolving door. We've got core people that have been there since day one, but people come and go. People go on to new opportunities. People give up writing, sadly, because as we all know, the money in journalism is pretty pretty non-existent
I always make the joke that you can't even fold it. Because it's
right?
not paper. It's not
Yeah.
enough to qualify for paper.
Yeah, right. And these people, like, we'll have some people, they'll have like small families, they'll have like a job, a mortgage, they just can't give the time anymore. So they will come and go. But it's really cool because some writers have gone on to really, really cool things, but they were with us prior. So I've always said when people want to get involved, I'm going, look, it'll look amazing on your portfolio if you've been here and you've been able to do these things. Like, I never thought we'd be able to cover like Download Festival as press, but we have. And Bloodstock as well, which is a big metal festival here in the UK, that we've done that every year since we started. And that's a really cool thing that a writer can do. So
I really like Bloodstock now. This is a side tangent, but they've started putting more of a focus on the up and coming artists too. And I really appreciate that about that particular festival.
Oh, for sure.
So,
like,
yeah.
To sort of go into that tangent, they've always done that. Like, they have an entire stage dedicated to one-side bands that win through like regional heat competitions, and then those bands will then like gravitate a couple years later to the second stage and then the main stage. And it's like, that is such a cool thing to do.
I love that about Bloodstock.
That's it. And that is kind of like the biggest pillar of Distorted Sound, is like support the underground. As cool as the big name bands are, and like I've managed to tick off some like bucket list bands to like speak to, there is nothing better than when you talk to like an upcoming band and you can tell they genuinely like really, really, really care about it, that we've gone out of our way to do that coverage, especially when COVID hit. Like, because my deputy editor that I have to shout out, she told me to shout her out because she deserves it as well. When COVID hit last year and touring just collapsed, she just did like social media takeovers on our socials to help shine a light on some of these upcoming bands that would have like had that exposure if touring was allowed.
That's
So
boss.
that's like the main thing as well why I wanted to start. It's like, shine the light on these bands, man. There's so many cool bands coming up all the time, but the bigger publications, they have targets. They have much more to lose if they took a risk on a band, whereas we're online, we don't. Like, it's all purely like sort of all the money that like costs from DS, we've started like breaking even, but it's all put in by myself. So the only person that loses is me. And that's kind of worth it if something we decide to go with doesn't really work.
So I got a question for that, just because you mentioned about the money aspect. So if it's all being self-funded by you, you don't get any outside funding then, or?
So we've got the Patreon page now, because we were with like an external publisher that hosted the PDFs, and people subscribed and got it that way. But the uptake was really hit and miss, because the sign-up process that we found that people were complaining about, going, oh man, like I've got to like make an account with this publisher and then give my credit card details, and I can't be bothered doing that, man. So then when Patreon really started taking off and I saw so many other sort of projects that were sort of being funded that way, we made the jump. And now we launched Patreon 2 years ago, I think. Maybe a year, maybe two. No, 2 years ago we launched it. The money we make now sustains the site, so I don't have to invest any money out of my own pocket now. Now that the groundwork's been set and we've got that readership, it funds itself. And then hopefully, if we continue to grow like we have done, there's new options then to like sort of try and capitalize, maybe do some merch, do some special promotions and stuff like that. Maybe even a limited print run. That would be sick.
So, okay. So just, I don't know if I want to, how I want to phrase this. So are you guys also run ads, do you not? Or am I crazy?
Yeah, we do have an ad program through Google. They like sort of contacted us and said, yeah, you're eligible for the ad program. It's tailored ads.
Right?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, so we run AdSense. What's really exciting, actually, we didn't really post about it because I just not had the time, but in the last 3 weeks, we signed up to the Bands in Town affiliate program.
I love it. I love that program.
So the tailored ads, man, for all the songs, for every post that drops on the site now, there is a tailored little Amazon music ad that takes you to that artist's like Amazon Music streaming page, and we earn a little bit through that as well. But yeah, the ads on the Patreon, they pay for the site costs, and hopefully we can then recoup some of that, invest it elsewhere, keep expanding.
So, okay, so you guys, I'm just looking at your Patreon page right now. So your tiers aren't that high that you request from people. So how are you able to kind of like keep the mag funded on that low, because you guys cost less than a magazine does?
I know. That was something I sort of worked out because, like, in the UK, so I'm going to go off British money here. The top tier magazines will cost maybe between £5 to £8, but you get that physical, you get the gifts, you get all that sort of cool stuff. You usually get a free CD. With us being online, it's a PDF, and it's like, right, we're going to have to lower it a little bit. The biggest sort of boom we get with the Patreon and new subscribers is the little side issue we do. So the main mag is great and brings in a couple of people, especially if the bands share it, and that's what we rely on. We rely on purely organic sharing. We don't really run any paid advertising. It's only been maybe 2 or 3 times we've ever done that, and I didn't really like the results. So everything, all traffic to social, Patreon, and the website is purely organic and referrals. But when the New Blood, which is a dedicated side issue that we launched last year, which is just dedicated to unsigned bands, that's quarterly, that booms new subscribers. But there's now enough money coming in that pays for the web domain costs, which is the biggest expense that we have.
Interesting. Okay, Corey, you want to go to the next question?
Oh, I actually just had a quick follow-up. Would you ever consider doing a print version, like, at all?
It's something I really, really want to do. It's working out the cost of it because I'm not really a businessman. I'm pure, like, my background is like, because I love bands and I wanted to set something up. So when it comes to finances and working out distribution, like, it all goes over my head. So I need to sort of talk to someone who knows how that shit works and how we can get something that's profitable. But the way that we're coming up for the launch of issue 73 of the mag that drops next week. So maybe for the 100th issue, we do a limited print run.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
The 100th issue, cover your whole history, have some cool band. That would be really cool. I was just curious.
No, it is something I want to do, and I have looked at doing it myself, but like, you wouldn't believe the costs if you wanted.
Oh, no, I would.
Yeah, you're talking thousands, and then you've got to post that out yourself, and I do not have the time to keep going to the post office. Like, I got some more mags.
Yeah. I'm in charge of, so I have a day job, and I'm in charge of ordering all of our printed materials, brochures, all that kind of crap. So I know how quickly it all adds up so fast, especially if you're doing a limited run and not like tens of thousands of prints.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So expensive. But with all of the competition out there online with, the big metal sites and everything, there's a lot of metal blogs out there. How have you been able to get Distorted Sound to grow, focusing mostly on like underground bands? Because I know, at least from my experience, everybody says they want more about underground bands, but then as soon as you post about it, they ignore it and go bitch about Corey Taylor. So
well, the best thing, especially in the UK, like, I'm in a Facebook group with other UK music site owners that were set up by like one of them, almost like a little support forum when we've got like issues or we're feeling a bit deflated, because everyone's in the same boat. It's what I loved about festival season in the UK. Like, you go to something like Download, and in that press area, there is everyone that you may only see once a year, but it's like you just pick up from where you've left off. So here in the UK, there is competition. Sure, everyone wants their own traffic. Everyone wants to grow, but it's not bitter competition, if that makes sense. That it is kind of a nice little network. So most of our writers won't just write exclusively for us. They'll be at maybe 3 or 4 other sites. A lot of them will be at some of the bigger publications as well. Like, some of our staff write for Metal Hammer alongside myself. The photographers will be shooting for like 5 different publications at any one time. And it's just kind of, there's almost like that little unwritten law. It's like, you don't really want to step on anyone's toes. But in terms of growing, like, when I set it up, I never wanted to do clickbaity headlines. I know it drives traffic. I know that's how, like, if you post something about Corey Taylor, if you post something about like Fear Factory with everything that's going on with them, you're going to get loads of traffic. But I don't really like that sort. I see it as almost tabloid metal journalism, where there isn't much substance. And at the end of the day, like, it's about the music. I couldn't really, if the story influences a record. So like, if there's been some like super deep story behind the making of an album, I don't know, like say there was like a band bust up, or like they lost all their money, or the studio burnt down and they had to regroup, that bleeds into the piece. But like if there's some side shit going on, it's like, well, it's not really that important. It's about the music at the end of the day. That's kind of why we're here. That's why we care. If the music's good, then we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about like the singles that have dropped. We'll do a review. We'll do a feature. But in terms of like growth, it's just kind of it's been sustained. It's not been explosive. We'll have moments that really, really pick up. If a big band or an underground band with a dedicated community will share something, we'll get a floodload of traffic. So this week, The Devil Wears Prada dropped that new EP, and they shared it on their Facebook, and we hit a daily record of like stats. Like it was through the roof, just all on that one review. Loads of people liking the Facebook page, comments, shares, it's going. But that's just by us tagging them in the review. And maybe their PR just went, hey guys, here's a new review, share it.
Yeah.
So,
and that's such a powerful thing that, you know, bands, when you're written about, definitely share it on your pages and help support the publications that are writing about you. It's something that Curtis tells all of his clients. I tell it to mine. Always share your reviews and thank people, because that publication will continue to support you if you're supporting them. It's a symbiotic thing.
That's it, 100%. Like the top tier like bands, like if it's a AAA band, like the chances of them sharing it every single time are quite unlikely, because you know everybody's talking about them. And even like a huge band, they might not even share like the review from like Kerrang or Metal Hammer. But the ones that do, the ones that I remember, so like I think it was yesterday, because I work quite a demanding day job as well, so I get up at 5 a.m. and I'm back at 6 p.m. Because I'm a paralegal in my day job, so when I get home I have very limited time to do DS. So I'll bash out a couple of news pieces, I'll check the site, I'll schedule some features, I'll do some of my own writing that I'm working on. And I did a piece, I think that's like, it was on a band called Fractal Universe.
We know Fractal Universe.
Yeah. And it's just sharing the news, the new single, and they commented on it and tagged us. And organically, we got so many likes on that one post on Facebook. And you know how bad the Facebook algorithm is, right? If you don't pay for that advertising, your post won't get the views. But because they commented on it, so many of their fans started liking the post and then sharing the post. And it was like, oh, right, that took them 2 seconds to do that. And it means so much for us. And then it makes going, right, I actually want to give them a feature. I've checked the album. It's pretty good. We can definitely like have space for them.
That's awesome. That's one band that is really good with doing that. Same with Queensryche is usually pretty good with shouting out.
Yeah, they've always been great.
Yeah. So now let's move along a second here. Let's talk about, so how did you start writing for, I guess, Terrorizer first and then Metal Hammer?
So when I was at uni, one of the sort of tasks that we had to do, we had to sort of reach out to like publications to try and get like our foot in the door there. And it was like one of those sort of bullshit modules at uni where it's like, oh yeah, just write to the Guardian newspaper and see if you can get in. It's like, they're not going to take a student, man. Like they've got a pool of freelancers. Like, so I shot like emails out to everyone. Like I shot an email to Decibel, Metal Hammer, Kerrang, just to show my tutor went, look, I've tried. If they replied, great. Terrorizer was how did I get in with them? I think I shot a random email to their album review editor saying like, hey, I'm at uni, I'm really into metal. I've actually got an interview with the Polish band Hate about their tour that I just did for fun. Do you want it? And they went, oh yeah, sweet man. Like we'll post this on the site. And then about a year later, I emailed them again saying, right, I'm about to graduate. I'd really love to get my foot in the door with Terrorizer. Here's examples of my work. I've been published here. I'm actually going to Finland in 2015 on an assignment, but they've not asked for a review of the festival. Do you want that? And they kind of went, yeah, okay, you're in. And then did a few little pieces. The first one I did was with Mark Tremonti about his solo project, because it was more fitted for Terrorizer's readership, because we did like a playlist piece where, because he really likes his thrash, like really old school thrashy death metal. So we just said like what albums he really liked from that. But he was like on a train going to Chicago or something. Really like difficult interview to do because of the signal kept dropping. But from there, then I got onto Pieces and Pieces, but then Terrorizer died, and that sort of dried up. So that kind of sucked.
But before we talk about Terrorizer dying, how'd you get into Hammer too? Is it the same?
Again, it was the same sort of thing. I'd sent a couple of emails, never really heard. But then as DS started growing and we started bringing in writers, we had some writers on the team that were already at Hammer. And nice. I was chatting to them and saying, like, look, I want to get my foot in the door with them. What's their contact email? They went, oh, just... and I said, do you mind if I can say that you passed me their contact email? They were like, yeah, go for it. Mm-hmm. And then by chance, like, sent an email, and their editor, Merlin, got back to me and said, hey, this is cool, we'll do a trial run. Did the trial piece, that ended up in an issue. And then since then, as and when I'm required, I do pieces for them. Again, it's been kind of hard to freelance with the day job and everything. It kind of takes up most of my time, because when I get home, it's like I'll do a bit of DS, then just sort of fall asleep, do it again the next day. But again, done some really cool things with them. Like doing stuff without the Gates was probably a career highlight, because I absolutely worship that band.
That's amazing. Corey, did you have a follow-up before I ask one?
No, go for it.
Okay. So does that ever does it ever conflict your side writing with Metal Hammer? Like your side writing with Metal Hammer, does that ever conflict with Distorted Sound? And if so, how do you kind of handle that?
Luckily, it's never really influenced it too much. So, for example, there'll be two examples I'll give where there was a conflict of interest and one that I managed to sort of sidestep. So the sidestepping one was the albums of the year. So around October time is when they usually start getting that ready, because they work, and the way we kind of work with DS, because I sort of implemented it as well, is we're always working a couple of months in advance, especially with them being print. Yep. So when that album of the year list starts getting ready, the albums I submit to Metal Hammer for that album of the year list will be identical to what I put for Distorted Sound, because why would I have two different lists? Because then people will question my integrity if you're going, well, you've said this was number one here, but it's different here. The one where it was a conflict of interest was a couple of years ago when Opeth dropped that Live at Red Rocks live record. I'd already spoke to a member of that band for Distorted Sound. Then Hammer got in touch saying, hey, do you want to speak to Mikhail, like, for a piece for us? And I was like, oh, shit, I've already kind of done it for my other site. He went, oh, who did you speak to? We went, oh, the other guitarist. He went, oh, it's fine. You can speak to Mikhail. No conflict of interest here. And then when it comes to the writers that are kind of like juggling, I kind of say, like, look, unwritten rule, if you're reviewing a record for another site, don't review it for us. We'll find someone else. They'd expect the same, because what you might say for me might be completely different to what you say to them. And then it brings your integrity into question. It brings our integrity into question, and it brings their integrity into question. And as long as you sort of balance it that way, and with the photographers, especially if they're like saying, oh, two publications have asked me to shoot the same gig, I say, right, take a couple of photos for me, take a couple for them. As long as there's no identical images, it's fine. And we'll have that almost gentleman's agreement between publications to be like, yeah, it's fine. You know, we're all here for the same reason. No one's stepping on each other's toes. It's all good.
That's kind of interesting, because I have seen it where the same writer has done the list for two different publications, and it will be different because the sites don't want them to be the same. And you're like, the fuck is the matter with you? Like, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
The only reason I could see having two different lists from the same writer is if there is a genre difference between the two different publications. Like if you're writing for one that's like Metal Injection, which has a lot more mainstream and things like that, it's a lot more variety for one publication. And then you're writing for one that's solely on black metal, so it's the top 10 black metal albums or whatever. That I could see making sense if there's some sort of a metal publication and a punk publication.
Yeah, that's it, right? So like Metal Hammer are, you know, they cover pretty much everything that falls under the bracket of metal. But with us, we do cover a lot of like pop rock, pop punk, alt rock, punk, some indie stuff as well, as and when it's applicable. If I think, oh yeah, our readers will kind of like that. So there will be that element. And if a writer's saying, oh, well, Metal Hammer's asked me for my sort of metal albums, go, well, you can give me a slightly different list, as long as if there's a crossover, those bands are kind of in the same place. If they're one place below, if it's a top 20 and bands in Hammer, say it's a code orange, right? Say code orange for them is like number 5 for Hammer, but then it's number 6 for us. That's fine. Like it's more or less in the similar sort of position. The only time as well when my list has sort of changed is if Metal Hammer haven't covered a band and it's not on that on the list to submit for your end of year coverage. So like Shadow of Intent, the last record they did wasn't on that list, but I fucking loved that album, and that was like my overall personal number 2 of the year. So I was like, well, it's going on my DS list, but because Hammer didn't cover it and they've not said we can include it, that can get put on mine. But again, they're very fine margins.
Yeah. So let's move on to Corey. Actually, do you want to ask anything, Corey, before we move on to Terrorizer?
Oh, no. I had my follow-up. That was it. Just,
cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Terrorizer for a second. So are you willing to talk? So since you're willing to talk about...
There's a few things I won't go into detail out of respect.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm not going to get it. But how much were you guys given any notice before it closed down? Because I've been given different versions. No. Nothing. It just was like, we're done.
It just sort of disappeared, man. Like it went from, because I wasn't freelancing a lot for them. When I first joined, I was doing probably a good few pieces like every month, and this was 2015, so that's 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And at that point as well, so like Metal Hammer and Kerrang, Rock Sound, the big sort of three, the top. Yeah. You could walk into any supermarket in the country and they would be on the shelf.
Yep.
But Terrorizer was more specialist. So if you walked into a Tesco, which is like our biggest supermarket in the UK,
I actually know what that is, even though I'm American. I actually know what a Tesco is.
Right? There's a fucking Tesco like on every street corner in the UK. Oh. But like their magazine section, if there was a Terrorizer there, you'd be like, holy shit, Tesco have got it. Other than that, you'd have to go to like a WH Smith, which is like, they will have much more magazines on offer. And that would be where you got it. So in 2015, like, or if you were subscribed to them and they posted it out to you, that would be sort of the main way people got it.
Oh, okay.
So when I joined, I was doing quite a lot, both on the review side and feature side. And looking back on it, like some of my favorite interviews I've ever done were for Terrorizer. Nice. So like on a little sort of tangent, like getting to talk to Pig Destroyer about how they made Prowler in the Yard for an anniversary special was so fucking sick.
Nice.
Like the fact that they had no money, so they made a vocal booth out of sofa cushions and they just yelled into it to record the vocals. Or like doing a entire discography on Sepultura with Max Cavalera and Andreas Kisser on 2 separate interviews was so sick to do. And at that point, I hadn't really done many huge profile interviews. So getting to do that made me so much more confident for where I am now. But when things started going wrong, it just stopped, man. Like, both on the sense of getting financial reward for your work, let's say, and for getting new pitches. And the saddest thing about it was that the editorial team were just as much in the dark as we were.
Yeah.
From what I understand, anyway.
Well, no, that sounds right, because I remember I had asked a question about.
Oh dear.
Oh. Well, looks like I'm taking over because we just lost Curtis. Maybe we'll loop back around, but no, that's extremely sad that everybody was kept in the. Oh, there he's coming back. He's coming back, but it is extremely sad that everybody was kept in the dark that way.
Yeah, it was. The worst thing about it was that like everyone, there was a sense of solidarity between the writers. Everyone sort of was in the same boat. Even the people that I didn't speak to on a daily basis, I sort of felt, I was like, oh man, but they're in the same position as me. And especially when it tried its comeback and we thought maybe things were getting better again.
I remember that.
They started bringing new writers as well. Like a close friend of mine who also writes for me, like she was absolutely ecstatic to get in with Terrorizer. She'd grown up reading that mag. And then she did like one review that never ever saw print, because after that comeback issue, they just never printed again. And it just disappeared again.
One last question on it, since a phone call came through while we were doing this for some reason. I thought I'd said it, and I got kicked out. One last thing I just wanted to ask about it. So, have you guys heard anything else since that last issue, or it's just been?
Nah, it's just disappeared. The dude in charge of the reviews, he's gone sort of elsewhere.
I knew that.
The main guy that I sort of reported to when I was doing the bulk of writing, he has gone on to, I think he leads another publication now, and he does a bit of PR as well. Which was really on a little like side note, like a couple of years ago, I was in London for like a Behemoth launch party for the new album. And I just went out for a cigarette, and like I was just ended up chatting to this guy, and I said, "Oh, what's your name, mate?" And it turned out he was the guy I was reporting to, and it was the first time I was meeting him. All these years later, after Terrorize had collapsed, we'd both moved on, and it was like, oh man, like kind of shit what happened, but so good to actually finally meet the guy.
A little too late.
Yeah, a little too late. Yeah.
So for our final thing, because we've already been 40 minutes, we gotta get on to the last question. So we're gonna talk a little bit about pitching. Can you kind of go over pet peeves for pitching that you get from people?
I have many. And
this will devolve into like a 3-hour bitch fest between me and you.
I think the main one I want is just tell me what you want out when you pitch me. Like, for fuck's sake, like, and have all the assets I need to build whatever piece you want me to do. If it's a news piece that you've just dropped a single, have a nice high-res image, not that's like below 100 kilobytes, because that will look like shit on the site and on Facebook.
James is angry. I can see it.
No. These are like the worst. This is like.
That's why I'm laughing.
No, I mean, I do something similar to what you do, and it's like, it's the worst when somebody's like, hey, do you want to cover my single? And they don't include an image. They don't even include a link to the single, and they're just like, hey, message me back if you want to cover my single. And it's like, how do I know?
The other huge one for me as well, because like the way we've grown in 6 years, like I said before, was pure organic growth. And that is thanks to like the SEO programs we're running. And we have word counts to hit. If you don't give me a fucking quote about your album or your song, and I have to follow up with you, I'm not going to really cover it, because why should I go out my way to cover something that you couldn't have put in an email?
It's so the quotes. Okay, I actually had this happen the other day where I asked a band for a quote, and they were like, nope, I have nothing I want to say. I have nothing I want to add. That is literally what they said to me. Nothing more to add. And I'm like, what the fuck? How can you not talk about your own song?
Oh,
that's it, right?
PR too. The band will do that to the PR. I don't know how many times I've had it where the band refuses to give a fucking quote, and I have to go back and say to the person, the band will not give a quote. I want to point out, if that happens with me, it is not my fault.
Oh,
no, I was talking directly to the band, and I'm like, hey, I need a quote, and that was their response was, I have nothing else I want to say. And I'm like, well, you didn't say anything.
And I'm writing about yourself. And some bands as well, like artistically, will not like give quotes if they're like some super like underground black metal band that like no one knows who they are. They don't do interviews. There's no promo photos, but there is that audience. Like Revenge is like the biggest example I can think of. You know, there's no interviews. There's no like promo photos, and it's like, well, okay, yeah, but you know, they are big enough to sort of, we can let that one slide. But if you're, especially if you are an independent band looking to get exposure, just give me a brief bio.
One sentence.
Brief bio of who you are, what you sound like, what sort of genre you sort of fit in, what you've got coming. Is it an album? Is it a music video? Are you going on tour? Give me some links to your socials. Just tell me what the fuck you want me to do. And the worst, right? The other worst one I hate, it's my biggest pet peeve, is people who pitch me shit after it's released. Like, who've sent me a record from like 2019 and we're like in June 2020. It's like, why am I going to cover this? Like, it is the worst. And they'll put a little line going, if you've got the time. It's like, mate,
I don't.
I'm working on September's albums in June, mate. Like, no, just please don't do that. Or last little rant, little pet peeve as well, is the ones that like, you can tell they don't really know how to network. So they think effective PR and pitching, if it can be a band and some PRs do it as well. In the like to section of an email, they will list like 300 publications. They won't BCC. And it's like, if I have to spend 20 seconds scrolling just to get to what your email is, nah, it's an instant delete. I won't even read it. I don't have time.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I've seen the no BCC. Do you ever get the one where it's like, we're such and such band, we're a thrash band from Minnesota. If you're interested in covering us, please email us back. And that's all they include. Do you get those?
Yeah.
Because I get those all the time and I want to punch the people that send them to me.
Yeah, I get that. I also get the people that like, they'll have like 100 mutual friends and send me a friend request on Facebook, and I'll just look at their profile and go, I know what they're going to do. I'm not accepting
exactly.
That. My email
I don't
is
accept
on my
anybody
website.
on Facebook.
Like,
James, I have a question.
Yeah, go.
So, this is probably one of our final questions since we're already at the 40-minute mark. But has anybody ever tried to bribe you for a review or a feature, just out of curiosity? Because people have tried to bribe Corey, so I'm just curious if you ever got the bribe question.
Oh, have I ever had a bribe?
Attempted bribe, obviously.
Attempted bribe.
I've never accepted a bribe. No, no, I don't think so. We've had a few people get a bit arsey why we've not covered their band. Like people that should know better as well, that will be like, oh, you've not covered like any of our music for like 3 months and we've been emailing you. It's like, yeah, but mate, your pitching's all wrong, man. If you're spamming me every day saying, hey, just checking in on this, but we don't have that relationship, and you've got to be conscious of the times you email as well. So like if there's a time zone difference, I can sort of let that one slide. Like no one can like sort of help the fact that I'm in the UK, people might be in the States or Australia. And if the email is well constructed and the pitch is great, I will take the time to read it. Like I went out of my way to thank a band that sent me a pitch. They were saying like, oh, we've got a music video dropping in 2 weeks. And in the email, they said, hey, we've been a fan of your mag for a while. Here's some like reviews and features we've really liked. Anyway, we're this band. We hail from this part of the UK. We sound like these. We've got a new music video dropping. Here's the pre-order link to the EP. Here's our Facebook, Twitter, Insta. Attached is a high-res promo photo. But if you want more, our full EPK is here. And it's like, I went out of my way going, that's the most professional unsigned pitch I've had for a very long time. So to be honest, yeah, you've got a piece. I will write this up. We'll do something later down the line.
I got one like that from somebody who I could tell English wasn't their first language, but I could also tell they put a lot of effort into it. And they were.
It makes the world of difference, right?
I will cover you.
It makes the absolute world of difference if you just put a bit of time rather than, I don't like the scattergun approach going, I will fling my shit at 500 people and if 2 people pick it up, that's a success. It's like, nah, tailor it, man. Also, like we've had really weird shit like where someone has clearly not done their homework and sent me like an R&B single and it's going, mate,
I get those too.
we're a rock and metal publication. You've clearly gone on every music publication that's available and gone, I'll just send it here. This will be fine.
I get those too. And I literally work for Metal Injection. And it's like, I get indie pop and R&B. And I'm just like, metal is in the name, people.
That's it. And like, you will go so much further if you're an unsigned band or like you're just starting in PR. If you put that little bit of care into your pitches, people will remember, because I think despite how big metal is as a scene, like in terms of the writers and the PRs, it's a very, very small world. So if you're shit, people will know. If you're an asshole, people will know. Because that's another thing, especially with COVID, is like people have been struggling since March last year. People don't have the time. People are mentally exhausted. So having that care and that professionalism and being friendly will take you leaps and bounds. If you're a PR, it'll be for your bands. If you're an unsigned band, it'll be for your own music. Just take the time to be kind, and you'll reap the rewards, man. Like every band that like thanks us, every PR that thanks us, it's like, yeah, I remember that, like, and I will work with you more.
Yep, totally. So what else do we want to cover, Corey?
Oh, I mean, I think that's a lot for now. And we definitely, at least we didn't devolve into bitching as much as I thought we might, because there's definitely a lot of pet peeves.
We did not have enough time. Otherwise, I would have carried on with the bitching.
We can schedule another time. We can definitely schedule another time. I'm more than up for that.
Oh yeah, we definitely want to have you back. This has been great.
Okay, do you have any final words, James? Anything you want to plug, especially the mag, nudge, nudge, wink, wink?
Yeah, for sure. So you can go on patreon.com/Distorted Sound Magazine. We have loads of different tiers, and we do have some really cool shit coming in the next issue, which drops next week. And I'll say what it is. We are doing launching a new area of the site called Brutal Recall, where we're taking classic death metal albums and talking to those bands. And our debut piece is with
that's fun. I like that.
It's so
Brutal
exciting.
Recall.
You can also hit up our site, distortedsoundmag.com, where all our content goes. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Same handle, Distorted Sounds Magazine. And yeah, enjoy the mag, enjoy what we do, and hopefully support us.
Cool. Well, to end, I'm going to say party on, Corey.
Party on, Curtis. Party on, James.
Party on.